Yeah.
Anyway, does
We're gonna
sounds
start.
really good. Got me hungry. But yeah, let's go in 3, 2, and 1. And welcome everyone to FrameCast 38, where we're all coked up on sweet candy.
But okay.
Anyway, how's
Yeah.
it going, Drew? How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm still looking at this whole new moderator panel for Twitch, wondering who's in chat I can already ban.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Can you
And
try
then
banning
awesome.
me? Like that'd be sweet.
I don't even know how. Wait, can I? Hold on. Like,
So for those of
I don't know.
you listening or watching on YouTube, there is like this new Twitch mob view thing, which aside from like showing the stream normally in the chat, like you also have like viewers in chat, like you can turn things on or off, it seems, and you have like auto mod queue mod actions. I'm not familiar with this, but it looks pretty sweet. Actually, let's see. Maybe I can like share it so that you guys can see what's going on. Like this is kind of what it looks like. So yeah, you see.
And this is where you end up like giving away any specific stream keys, and then whoops.
I'm sure there is no stream keys on here unless we're gonna be taken over soon, and that will be an interesting podcast in and of itself.
Oh, you don't have dark mode on?
Oh god, no! Like because like I log in every single time, so it turns it off. Do you have dark mode everything?
Yes.
How do you have that? How do you have that like on your phone? Like, do phones now support dark mode everything, or is it just like every single app by itself?
Hold on.
Ooh.
Hold on.
Be sure not to share anything. Oh, look at that! Look at that!
Dark mode.
That is sweet. No, mine is light. Hold on. Let me make sure that I'm not. There we go. Mine is light. We are the yin and yang on this podcast, I guess.
No. Right, should we do the thing? Should we start the
yes,
show?
Let's
do
get
the intro.
Let's get talking. Do the intro. Greetings, one and all, to another 10 o'clock. No. Today on the FrameCast. Today on the FrameCast, we're going to be talking about what value do reviews still have. And as you pointed out in your video, there is a reason for the title being structured that way. But let's get into the introduction of why I wanted to talk about this today, and we'll get more into it as we go along. So, recently I had a podcast with Tenno Defton, which is out on the main channel right now. The main YouTube channel, but we were talking about Division 2, and he told me that last week or so in Division 2, there was an exploit found which allowed you to do massive amounts of damage, and people that used that exploit got banned. Or some of them that used the exploit got banned, some didn't get banned, and some that didn't use the exploit at all got banned as well. So overall, it's a situation that I don't know much about, and I don't think it's too interesting to get into for us. However, what was interesting is that as a result, the Metacritic reviews for the game got like bombed into oblivion. As I have right here open, you can see that you have a lot of like zeros and ones and zeros, and like look at all, like there's so much red on this page, and it's all about like, oh yeah, I got banned, that sort of stuff. And we've seen this phenomenon before, where like people get angry and then they start either like review bombing it to 0, or they start counter bombing it to like 10s without like reviewing it. So that got me wondering, like, is there still value in reviews, or is it only specific reviews that now still have value?
So you got to understand that there's a stark, like a chasm's worth of difference between the reviews had by other customers and reviews had by reviewers. Like I want to say professional, right? So I think that there is value in both sets of reviews, but the problem is that both platforms are open to abuse, right? So with the reviewers, they can be bought, right? It's just like, I think I may know of or used to know one of the reviewers that could not be bought out. Actually, maybe a second one as well. The first one was Total Biscuit. Rest in peace. He could not be bought out. And I remember where loads of content creators, including Captain Sparkles, who is primarily known for his Minecraft content, did a review on Shadows of Mordor. But in order to do a review, he was massively restricted in what he could review, right? He wasn't allowed to review many, many different elements of the game, right? But Total Biscuit refused to sign this non-disclosure agreement. Like, he's like, no, I'm just not going to review the game. And then someone else turned around and actually got him, no, we'll give you a copy of the game to review. You don't have to sign the non-disclosure agreement. So that was good. He did not compromise on his, I wouldn't say
integrity.
Yes, that's the exact word. He didn't compromise on his. Some content creators, right? They do reviews of a game or an expansion of a game. It is 55 minutes long. All but 5 minutes of the review is talking about Pepsi and Coca-Cola, with the last 5 minutes of the review actually talking about the content of the game. That's about as useful as a trout to the face. Thank you so much. If you know who I'm talking about, good for you. I don't really care to call them out on it. But if they've worked out themselves, good for you as well. Still don't care. This person has also created amazing reviews where money is not involved. Right? Likewise, we have various different game titles that come out. Like, oh god, we did a video, Warcraft 3, right? That got reviewed to hell and back. Like, it just got bombed completely by the consumer base. Could you actually go get the Metacritic page for the Warcraft 3 Reforged while I continue to talk?
Yes, I'm on it.
And you can see that, like, a lot of what was said in the video that we did, in the episode we did, a lot of what people say on the forums, a lot of what people are saying YouTube videos, it has a lot of weight to these review bombs, right? Personally, I do think Warcraft 3 Reforged warrants such a piss poor review. Right? Review score, sorry.
Yeah. So
right?
Do you know what score it is?
Last I saw was 0.5.
Okay, so it's done a little bit better. It's now 0.6.
Right. Could you go to the reviews by the bigwigs, the actual reviewers, not the consumer reviews?
So critic reviews.
That's the one, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what do they typically score it at? What inappropriate thing did you?
The site layout just kind of like crashed, but it should be fine now. So we have, like, the first one seems to be a jeu vidéo, which seems to be a French website, if I had to guess, that says an 80% score. Excellence demands excellence, and Blizzard could have honored its great heritage in a better way. It remains to be one of the cornerstones of the strategy market, as well as an exceptional experience for any self-respecting video game lover.
Well, what the hell was that? Right. So just go through the scores. So we've got 80%, 75%. What else we got?
We got, hold on. Boom. We got 70%, 70%, 70, 70, 70. This probably is ordered by score. Maybe we've heard, like, by publication, if that makes it up. Oh, yeah, here we go. 45, 52, 65, 30, 55, 50, 70, 60. So it's between, like, 45 and 70 at most.
Yeah.
A lot of
so
50s.
Like, the fact that there's even, like, above 50 is just shocking,
Mm-hmm.
right? With the shit that they pull. But, I don't know what these, then going on to another side of it, right? We have, I remember many years ago, I read I read two articles. So I read an article and a review. So anyone that knows me knows I am a huge Guyver,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely massive Guyver. Got a whole shelf dedicated. And when the 2005 series or reboot got a UK release, and there was an article of an interview with the original author. In the same magazine, there was a review of the first DVD, and the review completely slammed the show, yet the article gave it massive high praises. And it's just like, do you maybe want to get your story straight?
Trying to
Um,
please all audiences. Well, like, okay, so one thing I wonder about, the thing that you bring up between like the critics and the user reviews, the point where you said like a lot of like user reviews can be like oh, I don't like this game, let me give it a low score. Like they're not that very reliable in general. Whereas like the critic reviews should be potentially more reliable because it's like a professional review thing. However, what constitutes a critic review and what constitutes a like random review? Because in general, like one thing which I'm wondering about when it comes to like these NDAs that people have to sign in order to like get a review copy, which in the gaming space happens a lot, where like if you stick to these guidelines, then you can get a review copy next time. If you don't, you never get a review copy. So I would say that if you get a review copy, generally, like you're seen at least by the developers or like some people, the publishers, as a legitimate reviewer. But is that like the threshold where like if you get a review copy, like you belong to the critics, but if you don't and you just get it, like what is the difference then between like, hey, I'm a YouTuber of this size versus like a YouTuber of this size, and I buy the game and then I review it. Like, where does that threshold lie?
I personally think that to be a reviewer,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have that as basically your occupation. I wouldn't say that in the instance of Captain Sparkles reviewing the copy of Shadows of Mordor, he was a reviewer. He was reviewing the game, certainly, but I wouldn't say that that was his primary occupation.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, there's other content like God, what's his name? Jim Sterling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I certainly say he's a reviewer. He is very critical about the content that he is reviewing, but for a good reason. Along with, oh God, Angry Joe, I would say he is a reviewer because he does review, he plays and he enjoys, so forth, but he is very critical in what he's reviewing.
Mm-hmm.
But unless that is something that is your primary focus for content, I would not necessarily say that your occupation is that of a reviewer.
So does size come into play with that? Because let's say that I have nothing to do in this time where I'm forced to stay at home and I'm going to be reviewing a bunch of like past games or games that are coming out or whatever. Like I'm going to make a bunch of videos about them and only like me and my mom watch them. Like I don't think that I would necessarily say that I am a reviewer right there and then. So does size then come into play? Because like I'm trying to find out like how exactly can we define like the um, the definition of critic, like official critic, since we're kind of looking at the distinction between like any random Joe that posts a review on Metacritic and like the critic, which is a bit more esteemed.
So I think there's a couple of important elements to being a reviewer.
Mm-hmm.
One, when you're reviewing a product, you shouldn't give just your opinion. That is not a review,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're talking about fact versus opinion, right? So, for example, a fact is that it takes oh god, the computer specs, right, for Crisis,
Mm-hmm.
they were really, really high. Most of the time when people had a computer at the time, they could not run Crisis,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is fact,
Yeah.
right? It is also fact that the requirements of most PC games are getting higher and higher. Look at Monster Hunter World,
Mm-hmm.
right? But whether or not you enjoy it, this was the problem with the review of the Guyver DVD, the first DVD. It was someone's opinion,
Mm-hmm.
right? They didn't state whether or not how well it was edited. It didn't state how the voice act. It didn't state anything. It was just, I don't like this, right? Which is what a lot of reviews have boiled down to these days. I don't like this. It is shit, right? And as a result, a lot of people often echo just that. And I will say, even though I love him, I do love Zero Punctuation and Yahtzee's critiques. That is all there is. It is his opinion of a game,
Mm-hmm.
right? I remember way back when the internet wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is today, to play a game or a demo, you had to buy a computer gaming magazine which had a demo disc on it, right? You still
Mm-hmm.
had them with the PlayStation era, even the PlayStation 2 era. You would get magazines with very short demos on because the internet just wasn't a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or not nearly as big as it is today. And I remember one PC gaming magazine. If you're in the UK and you know this, give yourself a pat on the back. PC Zone, right? Absolute phenomenal magazine,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it gave you in-depth reviews where it stated this is the sort of game it is. It structured the narrative, right? Deus Ex. It is a first-person shooter game where you have RPG elements and a multiple path progression story. You can go do the first level in the demo where you can take multiple different routes to get to the same objective, the same goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was fact. This is how the game plays, right? Then you would have a section, like a paragraph of the person reviewing it, right? Saying, like, this is my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the game. Yes, I think the graphics are a bit ghastly to look at, but for the reduction in graphics, you get a much larger, expansive world, right? The voice acting is top notch. They voiced all the lines, really enjoyed that. Giving both opinion and fact led a lot to informed decisions of whether or not you wanted to buy the game, right? These days, shit, I don't like it.
Yeah, I I think that what you point out is very valid. Where a good review will state the facts that are true, and then provides an opinion, and hopefully also provides a balanced opinion. Maybe also based on like different viewpoints, and maybe if it's only from one point of view, they also describe what kind of viewpoint they have. So like, let's say that like, hey, like I really enjoy this as playing on my this sort of PC or this sort of like PlayStation, and coming from the perspective of someone that really likes single player games, or coming from the perspective of someone that really likes to play multiplayer games, so that you can like envision as to why they would like it. I think that those are some good quality aspects of like a good review. Now, I definitely think that when it comes to especially the YouTube era, or the more prevalent internet era, where it's gotten to a point where it's no longer just the magazines that compete with each other, but it's like magazines that compete with people, that compete with individuals, that compete with like anyone that like posts out like whatever they want. The clickbait has become a lot more prevalent, where like saying this thing sucks, or I hate this, or you're wrong about, or I love this is the best thing ever, like tends to be the most catchy title from like YouTube videos with 2 views to like the articles in the esteemed because I don't know how they've changed, like review like institutions. So that is a very interesting evolution. And one thing that you pointed out when it came to like opinions, I think the opinion of the reviewer should matter into the extent of like giving you a idea as to like what this thing is, like not just a description but also like a feeling of like, is this true, or how does it feel if you can imagine to yourself to be in their shoes. However, with the popularization of like YouTube as like a platform, or like internet personalities, I feel that one thing which could be a big problem is idolization. Like I feel a lot of people are like portraying certain characteristics or certain personalities onto like the people that they see on the internet, and they're idolizing them as like, oh, this is the person that I hold in really high regard because he's got so many subscribers, or like I've been watching him for so long. And then when this person says, oh, I don't like this, then people tend to take that up as like, oh no, then I don't like it either. Whereas like they're not even listening to like as to why they don't like it, or whether they have the same ideas, or whether they follow the same. It's just they don't like it because that person doesn't like it.
Likewise, it goes the other way, where people say, I like it because so and so likes it, right? I don't know if you've watched oh god, what's the name of the damn movie? Black Panther.
I haven't watched it in its entirety. I've watched bits of it on planes.
Right, okay. I don't like Black Panther. I don't like the Black Panther movie.
Mhm.
It sends mixed messages, and in all honesty, it is just The Lion King. Or if you want to break it down even further, it is just Hamlet.
Mhm.
Right? And so many people say that Black Panther is absolutely phenomenal. It's like the best movie ever. And like it is just The Lion King.
Mhm.
Right? Replace uncle with cousin. That's it. That is it. It is The Lion King.
We had the live action Lion King before we actually had the live action Lion King.
And like honestly, it's yeah, I was not impressed. Everyone ranted and raved saying that was like the same with Captain Marvel. Everyone said that Captain Marvel was amazing. Actually, one person that does give good breakdowns, actually I would even argue reviews, right, is a YouTuber by the name of Mauler, right?
Mhm.
Now, be warned, Mauler will spoil the movie for you, right? He will tell you a play-by-play of what happens during the movie,
Mhm.
right? But afterwards, he will then go through what his opinions are. The breakdown is heavily influenced by his opinion, right? But he is laying it down fact by fact, right? One of my favorite ones is his review of the movie The Predator, which is an absolute joke. I'm so glad I never saw it in the cinema.
Mhm.
But he breaks it down, and like there's so many elements to it that just make no sense. Like, why, why is the logical leap to I have this alien gauntlet thing is to take a piece off and then swallow it, right? where did you come to the logical leap on this? It is an alien device. This thing is a metal ball, right?
Mhm.
That is quite large, right? If that gets stuck down your windpipe, you're going to die, right? Who knows? Maybe it will react with your stomach acids, and then sorry, no. And then you end up dying of toxicity. Like, oh look, I've got mercury poisoning because I just swallowed a ball of mercury. I don't know what I'm doing. Ha ha! Like it. Honestly, it's so dumb. And then they got to the point in the movie, right,
Mhm.
where they named the alien, right? So they had an alien on an autopsy table. As we call them predators. CinemaSins would say Q credits at this point.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
like, oh,
So I like definitely in the movie industry, it has been a little bit more prevalent. I like the first example I thought of was like Suicide Squad, which was like, oh, it's a great movie, and then like, no, it wasn't. But like the few reviewers said it was, and that sparked this entire debate between like can you still trust the critics, which
No.
was an interesting one.
The thing is, I don't think you've been able to trust critics for years, right? One of my my all-time favorite movie, apparently some people can't actually just say this. My all-time favorite movie is the original Predator movie. I fucking love that movie because it is a story wrapped within a story. You have what you call it, Dutch, along with his team of mercenaries that they do good things, right? They won't take any assassination jobs or anything like this. They then go to actually extract some ambassador or something in that was captured by some guerrillas. Turns out that that was a lie. They were there to get information, so on and so forth. But all at the same time, completely separated from that narrative was the whole Predator narrative wrapped around it, where they were being hunted, right? It's there throughout the entire movie. You can see like all the different clues before the movie even gets to showing you the first Predator, right? It's not the first Predator, the first attack by the Predator. It was great. It was amazing, right? The favorite movie from me is Predator. Then, oh god, what was the name of there was a film critic, really famous film critic. I'll contact my dad and I'll ask him. And the guy just absolutely slated the movie, said it was absolute shit. Like, and like, I'm sorry, the guy's completely utterly fucking wrong.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I mean, like I would call there is a difference in taste, but most of the time, like I think the thing that you're pointing out is like sometimes people just like, nah, this seems to be very very off. Now, I have to say that I am not comfortable with calling all critics like hacks or being like, oh yeah,
No.
like they're all bad. Like I think that it's a very delicate world, and even now, so even more delicate because given the amount of like people the amount of supply of people like reviewing things like no longer are just like people doing it on magazines or people doing it on like these places, but it's like all over the internet everyone can do a review on what they want. Like there is a lot more competition, so like how do you like the amount of money that you earn from it has drastically decreased, probably, I don't know, because also like you got more eyes on it, but like it's not a lot, I would say, for most people. So if you can get your hands on review copies or early screenings or like get instant access from like the thing that you're reviewing, then that's a really great benefit. And also it's a really great benefit if you are seen somewhat favorably by the industry around you. And like there is a case to make for that, because if you don't, if you kind of just screw around, then like you lose that. You're going to have to pay out of pocket. And there's also like a bit of reputation that goes along. Now, that's not to say that you should always like swallow your opinions, because like you're a reviewer, you should give your opinions. But it's a very like thin ice situation where one can regard Jim Sterling as someone that's always very critical about things, which is a good thing because people need to be critical and like you need to have a critical eye on things. But people can also regard Jim Sterling as someone that like always tends to hang on the negative and maybe tends to like rag on a little bit a little bit much on like certain individuals or certain companies, where it's like, well, is that maybe a bit of a personal biased view? And he did make a video about it recently, which I saw, where he was like, well, I make more videos about like negative things and about certain companies because they get me more views on my YouTube. But those are things which like you have to keep in mind. Like I've seen many people, for example, in like when it comes to like my experience, people rave on Warframe like when they were like done with the game and they were so mad about it. And there's been a bunch of them lately again. And of course, yeah, there were times where I wasn't really happy with that game either. However, if you go ahead and like post a public video stating all of your concerns and all of your madness and I hate it, it's like that's not really gonna benefit anyone if you don't treat that with care. And some say, well, then you're kind of censoring yourself if you like need to treat that with care. But like what it sends out as a message about you as a reviewer or you as a person that's like interacting with games online or any media online, is that if you are personally fed up about it, you will not stop at anything to just like slam any company that you've worked with before. And
going on that,
mhm,
right? I wasn't going to bring that up, but I'm glad you did, right?
mhm,
I think it's really important to identify the difference of, again, yeah, and this relates back to what I was saying in the beginning. Difference between opinion and fact,
mhm,
right? So the opinions are, oh, we need more challenge, we need more, we need difficulty, we need. Fact of the matter is, players don't want difficult content; they want easy content, right? I remember way back when I used to play the Sonic games, right? If I died, I just stopped playing the game, right?
mhm,
I don't like losing. I don't like starting again from the beginning. It was a negative thing. I didn't like it, right?
mhm.
So I stopped doing it. It didn't mean it was a bad game. It just meant that my taste was not tailored towards the game. Likewise, if someone said that this game is a piece of shit, it is garbage, so on and so forth, but it sold 2 million copies, then there seems to be a big disparity between your opinion of it being bad and people still buying.
It depends, because like let's say that there is for example, like BuzzFeed articles. Like, well, I'm calling it BuzzFeed, but like the style of articles where it's like it's very
Clickbait.
easy with the truth. It's being posted on like Facebook, and you're just looking at it like, oh god, like those are things that I would say no, I would not like get rid of it. Like a lot of it is just so bad that you're like, why is this even here? Who is clicking on this? But so many people are clicking on it and sharing it on Facebook and it still exists and more are popping up. So like the fact that like you don't like it, but at the same time like millions of people are interacting with it in a positive way doesn't mean necessarily that you're wrong. It just means that like there's a difference between you and that massive group of people. But I wouldn't necessarily say that if millions of people buy a game and you say it's bad, maybe from your experience, the thing that you're looking for is not there. So for you, it's bad, but for those people, it worked. But then I
That's
wouldn't
my
say that you're
point.
right.
That is the exact point I am making, right? Like, I don't like Modern Warfare, right?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite COD game was Call of Duty 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
The original Call of Duty 2, not Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty 2, but it was still
Mm-hmm.
set in World War 2, right?
Yeah.
And then when they did Modern Warfare, I didn't like it at all. Like, every aspect of Modern Warfare, I just detested. And then when Activision announced, "Oh, we're rebooting Modern Warfare 1," Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. "Oh, we're rebooting it. Yay!" Like the number of people I knew at my job
Mm-hmm.
that bought it, right, was significantly more than the number of people that I know that play Warframe, right? Yet they all stopped playing it but like 3 or 4 days down the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or finished it. Like, you just spend 60, 70 quid on that. You've already finished it. You've already stopped playing it. Are you kidding me? Right?
It depends on what they're looking for. If they're like, oh, I played a campaign content and the rest I don't care about, it's like, well, then they finished it in a couple of days. And if they're willing to spend that money on it,
But that's the point, isn't it? Right? So my point is, to me, that is a low value game, right?
mm-hmm.
If you manage to, like, again, my whole perception on Destiny 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? I completed the main campaign in 6 hours. I was thoroughly disappointed that I spent 65 quid on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I did not see it being worth that value for money, right? And that is my opinion. Yet there are plenty of people that still play Destiny 2 saying that it's the best thing since bread, sliced bread even, you know. And people are entitled to their own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not think that people should listen to one opinion. I think people should listen to a series of opinions. I think people should do further investigation. For example, Doom Eternal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that doesn't know, I really don't like Doom 2016. I really did not get on with it. I didn't like the fact that it was constant arena combat. I didn't like the fact that it was really in your face about it. I didn't like the fact that you had to you have to kill all the enemies, and I didn't like the glory kills in order to get ammo. No, was it ammo? No, it wasn't ammo. It was health. And then I didn't like the fact that you had limited chainsaw uses in order to actually get your ammo back. I liked nearly nothing about the entire game. The game was bugged as well, which annoyed me. I always seem to manage to find these bugs where why is the door not opening? Oh, it's because a monster has spawned in that wall and I can't kill it. Cool, I have to restart. Awesome, thanks, Doom. But the marketing was really appealing to me for Doom Eternal. And I'm like, it looks really cool, but so did Doom 2016. And then, I watched these reviews. I even watched a review of a YouTuber that I really like called The Russian Badger, right? The thing that concerned me the most was the fact that all the footage for name of the thing.
Doom Eternal?
Thank
Doom
you.
2016 Eternal.
No, Doom Eternal. Yep. All the footage for Doom Eternal just showed off the different small sections of each arena fight, right?
Yeah.
And it really concerned me that I couldn't get to see the whole thing, right? I couldn't see one level from start to end. That is what super duper concerned, right? Ultimately, I decided to watch some videos of Jacksepticeye and Markiplier playing through Eternal. And yes, the arenas were there. They made them a lot less obvious. Yes, the glory kills were there, but they were so much shorter. Yes, the parkour was there, but it was so much faster and so much more expanded upon, right? So everything I didn't like about Doom 2016 was addressed. And because I went to that extra effort of investigating the game and getting to see a proper hands-on look of it, I then went ahead and bought it.
And have you enjoyed it?
I've loved it. I think Doom Eternal is everything Doom 2016 wishes it was.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's pretty cool. I definitely think that looking at different points of view is very important, and that's why I think we've talked about this internet thing, allowing more voices to flood the market. I don't think it's inherently a bad thing. I think the democratization of reviews, where let's say where we had Suicide Squad, where brilliant reviews are given, and the community is fuck this, it's actually bad, is a really good thing. Because in an era previously, there wasn't this wasn't so obvious. You didn't have people couldn't stand up and say, no, this is bad, this is actually bad, or no, this is actually really good. You're just kind of this is not really this doesn't seem fair. So I feel that partly it's good that you have more voices coming out of there. That there is more accessibility to different kinds of reviews. And I do agree that a single review in and of itself doesn't hold that much value as much as having multiple reviews and doing a little bit more investigation does. You can't if you go for one review, you're very dependent on one person giving you their opinion, which is very subjective. And when it's subjective, it can also very well be influenced. So I think that is something important. But the reason why I didn't title this podcast do reviews still have value, but instead of what value do reviews still have, is because I was wondering whether there would be a different way of approaching reviews. If there is a different thing that reviews can fill a hole for. Because what we see, especially with the Division 2 situation now, but also when it came to Warcraft 3, is that people start reviewing not based on the inherent quality of the game or necessarily the entirety taken into consideration. They start reviewing upon issues they have with the game, which they don't feel will be addressed. So when it came to Warcraft 3 Reforged, that was a really giant shit show. but was it worth a 0 on a 0 to 10 score? Like, it was still, if I were to create a game, I could never create something like that. So like, I wouldn't say that it would necessarily warrant a 0, but those 0s were given because people were feeling issues with the game, and they were really, really upset about that. And apparently the only way that they felt they could express that was through review bombing it to like 0.6. So do you think like that there could be some other way that reviews could serve another function than they do just solely as like a traditional review?
So I think that reviews can typically signify a warning more than anything else. So there was more to the whole Warcraft 3 Reforged thing, which was they were preventing people from getting refunds, right? Promises were made that weren't kept. There was so much there that broke the quality of product that Blizzard typically send. It upset a lot of people. Now, did people review bomb it? Yes, certainly, right? Was it unwarranted? No, I do not think it was. But I think that reviews either serve as a method of entertainment rather than an actual piece of informed content, or they're used as one source of information gathering, right? So, for example, I don't know if you know this, in universities, like in publications, you're not allowed to cite Wikipedia, right? Any idea why?
Well, because Wikipedia is not necessarily a primary source. It's a source which like everyone can like combine. What's the name for it? Come on. It's like a collectively create a thing where like if the consensus is higher, yeah,
right. Everyone can contribute to Wikipedia, but it doesn't mean it's right. Right. So, for example, one of the biggest misconceptions in the world is that the moon rotates around the Earth once a day, right? That is not true. The moon rotates around the Earth once every 28 days because of the phases of the moon. But but there is the saying that millions of people can't be wrong. I'm sorry, millions of people can be wrong. So when doing citations and publications, Wikipedia is not allowed to be a source of truth.
Well, speaking of the universities, like there is also like an interesting situation when it comes to. Actually, I don't know how tightly this disconnects with like I don't think I don't think that like peer reviewing within universities is necessarily like similar to like reviews of games and such. Actually, I don't know.
My point.
No, like the reason why I was gonna bring it up is because like I recently came across a very interesting story, which is on a podcast from Eric Weinstein with Brett Weinstein. It's apparently a story of when Brett Weinstein was in his 30s, which is like 20 or so years ago. He discovered that when it came to like medical testing in I believe Canada or the United States, they were using lab rats from like one source, one laboratory that was creating these lab rats in order to test out like studies on like diseases and like medicine upon like the human body. And the interesting thing with these lab rats was what he discovered was that all these lab rats had a condition within their cells which allowed them to be different than regular like rats in the wild. Because of the way that they were bred, like their cells had a different structure. And when he proposed that like hypothesis to like one of the people that was working in that laboratory via a phone call, they said they would look into it. They provided them statistics, and then like he created a study around it and like sent in this paper for review. And then that paper got returned with very bad reviews by the same person that he contacted because if this story would break, then like all of the studies that were done based on these lab rats before would be invalid and would have to be done again, and like the story wouldn't be that big. So what went ahead over years and years and years, like this person that shut down the paper went ahead and collected like more information and like then proposed the same study, kind of the same paper as he did, and didn't cite him, didn't name him as a co-author, and I think that they got a Nobel Prize for it because it was such a major revelation. And this story never broke until like in the podcast where Eric Weinstein like forces his brother to like tell this, because like Brett Weinstein never said it because he never thought it was like worthy enough to like tell. But it's a very interesting thing where like, you know, this system of review where like the idea of having multiple reviews sit out there with no multiple reviewers sit out there to like find like a source of like reason and like being able to like you know, get a educated opinion is something that can be very heavily influenced. So like I think that especially in that case, where you look at that, like the democratization of reviews with when it comes to games media or like movie media, where not just like the few selected individuals by the institutions can review these things and decide what it is based on their opinions, but everyone else does provide probably for a more clearer picture, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to have like different unbiased sources for a review. So many years ago when I was working at the university, I worked in a department. That department was hired by a company within the UK, a very, very large company. They were hired to do a job where they had to find the best the best method of cleaning something. Sorry, I can't go into too much detail. They had to find the best method of cleaning something. And as a result, the university was behind schedule, and I think they didn't get the findings back to the company until 6 months later, all right, than they should have. So they handed over their findings and everything. They wrote a report. They handed over the findings, and the company sent them back. Like, could you please change? What do you mean? It's like, we need you to say that it's this other method of cleaning this thing. It's like, but that's not true though. It's like, no, but we need you to say it. So, that's not ethical. Oh, we need you to say it because we've already spent millions on this other cleaning method, and if you don't say it, we're withdrawing our funding from you, and we're not going to pay you. So they had to change it, right? You know, so how can you trust it, right? You know, so...
it comes down to the people that are doing the reviews are so reliant on like outside funding or like the provision, or like when it comes to games, to the provision of these free early access games, where like not only do you not have to pay for the game that you're getting, like you also get it early, which is like a very big important thing when it comes to, especially when you look at YouTube, but also when you look at like writing articles online. Having it early can give you such an edge when it comes to visibility, when it comes to like the amount of revenue you generate from it, that like it makes so much sense with the landscape as it is, that people will keep in the back of their head when writing a review that they'd like to stay in favor with the publisher or the person that handed them this thing to review, which is a really weird, interesting situation, actually.
So, like, I'm surprised that the people that scored Warcraft 3 Reforged so low actually succeeded in scoring it so low. You know, I know IGN are synonymous with always scoring something 8 or 9 out of 10. I like, do you want to give it a real score? It's like, oh, this game is absolute trash. I've shat better turds in this game. It's absolutely awesome. It's like, it's absolutely awful. Like, I wouldn't waste my time on it whatsoever. 9 out of 10.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. Wow. So I believe the critic side of things is a very delicate situation, and it often results in like these sorts of things. And to that, I do believe that like the democratization of like having individual reviews on there as a balance, just like a check mark, is very like good to have, and I'm glad that we have it these days. But one thing I was wondering about, when it comes to like the different use case for reviews, when like people like review bomb, like let's say Division 2 right now because they got banned by it, or the way that they review bomb like Warcraft. I believe that like another use case for it might be is communication. Actually, just communication, because like not a lot of times, and especially when it comes to Blizzard, like we had this discussion about Blizzard like weeks ago with Loss, but what I felt with the Blizzard situation was that people didn't feel like they were being heard, or like if they were being heard, they were being actively ignored, and if they had a response, and the response was very much like a non-response, which a lot of game companies really like to give these days. But so then like the only way that they feel that they can communicate is by throwing down the review score, because not only will that be something that will be seen by the game, but at the same time that will be something that will also be seen by like the general public and maybe investors, because like right now I think that one of the big problems that like a lot of people face is that like it doesn't matter what they think, as long as either they buy the game and they've already spent the money, or actually more importantly, as long as the investors are happy. And as long as the investors are happy, then no one cares about what the gamers think. So hasn't reviews, or like especially the individual reviews, also like maybe morphed into a tool where it's the one of the only few ways where players can actually communicate to the company, like force them to listen, because like bad review scores are kind of something that like they can't avoid, where like a ragey forum post is something they can easily just ignore.
I think that there's a multitude of ways of approaching it. I mean, the fact that reviews can be bought and things is not good, right? I think that people can get on a bandwagon so easily is also not good. It's like people are influenced really heavily on a lot of things. People prefer to be told in general, people prefer to be told what to think than think for themselves, right? It's the whole, God, no, I'm going to try really hard not to offend anyone. It's like the number of times I'm told, oh, you should watch Game of Thrones, it's really, really good. No, it's really, really not. It's like, oh, you should, oh, Black Panther, absolutely amazing film, best film ever. You should, oh, Black Panther is really good. No, I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. And I think it's important for people to be able to formulate their own opinions and reviews and critiques and advice than just to solely rely on what someone else is saying. Right? And if you can't engage an audience like this, then you're pretty much stuffed.
I think like I see two problems with.
Sorry. If you cannot engage a review like this, not an audience.
Yeah.
If you yourself, because you're just gonna take whatever someone says.
Yeah, well, like I think there are like two problems with that. Like the first problem is that like we are inherently a social animal. So what that means is that we outsource our sanity. And what that means, outsourcing our sanity means that like from the moment that we are born, like we're actually like you can very well see it from the moment that we were born, especially with like 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. We try to like figure out like what is alright to do, what isn't. Like what can we do, what can't we do? Like what is sane and what is insane. And like we get a lot of feedback from people around us. So like if I were to like do something which is really, really good, like I'll have like a lot of people like applaud and be like, hey, oh yeah, that's good. If I do something that's mediocre, I'll just be like, no one will really care. But if I commit like an act which is like is a really like insane, stupid act which no one should do, then like everyone around me will like react in disgust. And like that's what you see when like children are growing up. Like they'll like smile and like people will smile back and they'll like give them attention. But if they like throw a tantrum, then people will like stay away from them and they'll be like stern with them. And if they break something, then people will be mad with them. So like that thing we have that, so we always have that going on. Like we're constantly like checking our environment for like, if you like you'll everyone will have this, will have this where they try to land a joke, they like throw a joke out, and sometimes some people laugh and you're like, hey, that's a good joke, I got humor, I'm funny. Sometimes you throw out a joke, people are quiet, no one reacts. It's like, oh, maybe I'm like, maybe I'm not that funny. Sometimes you might even like throw out a joke and people will just like react in shock and terror and be like moving away from them, and then you're like, oh shit, then you really miscalculate the situation. So when it comes to like what opinions to have and like how to think about the world, we outsource our sanity. So like when you're looking for like, hey, what are good shows, what are good mediums, what are like good movies or games, it's like we will also be tended to check what other people think and what the majority of people think, because if the majority of people think it, most of the time chances are that like the majority will be right. Not all the times, but like when it comes to like the way that we've grown up and the way that like species survive, it's like if you are in the bigger herd, the chances are slimmer that like the lion comes and eats you than like if you're all by yourself. So doesn't mean that like that's always the right place to be. Definitely not. The moon doesn't circle around the earth every 24 hours. Don't be stupid. But like I think that that's one major problem when it comes to like the way that people will like look at reviews and look at other people to like see what their opinions should be. And then also part two of that problem, not only are we like looking out for them, but I think we're also looking for those things because an opinion is subjective, which duh it is. But that means that we cannot fact check an opinion. So like when it comes down to the IGN reviewers like, it's a horrible game, I hate it, 9 out of 10. It's like, yeah, that is, there's a discrepancy between them. But like, what is the difference between like someone like saying they genuinely like a game or someone saying they genuinely like a game because they were influenced by it? Like, you cannot fact check unless like that person through and through. You have like history to like prove things. But still, it's like an opinion is very hard to like see whether it's genuine, when it's true. So in order to like reference that and like, does this make sense, you will look outside to like outsource like this cross-referencing. So I think that there are two hindrances in that, like, that make it really hard to as you say,
So
just like, yeah.
This actually spurs on a thought in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know of the term Gamergate?
I have heard about it, but I believe it was just before my time. Well, just before the time that I was like actively involved in gaming.
Right. So the biggest origin to Gamergate was an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Adam Baldwin, for sure. Turned around. He called out for gaming journalism to get its shit together, because I know there are plenty of gaming journalism publications online that are honestly atrocious, right? Their reviews are not a review. It barely says anything about the game. It's full of bile and vitriol. It's just, what the hell am I even reading? And I'm going to name some, right?
Mm-hmm.
Polygon, Kotaku,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the one that stood out in my mind the most is a article from Rocket Paper Shotgun, right? Which was an interview with Peter Molyneux, the ex CEO of Lionhead Studios, right? The interview literally started off. It was a transcript. It wasn't a review. It wasn't an interview. It was a transcript, right? which is the first, what the fuck am I even reading?
Yeah.
The first thing this person said to Peter Molyneux was, "Are you a pathological liar?" Right? How do you start an interview like that? Right?
I don't know, man. That's yeah. I'd be getting out of that interview real fast if someone comes out like that. It's no.
Right. I'm not going to go into any more detail about that, but there were loads of instances where, people had allegedly slept with reviewers, right? Had the sexes with reviewers to get a positive review for their game, right? And that is one of the big things that spurned Gamergate, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was the horrible, nasty, anti-socialist behavior, but ignoring that side of it, there were also things where, do you know the content creator Anita Sarkeesian?
I have heard of her. Yeah.
So she created a Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
which was to fund her to create a series about like feminist viewpoints on. Oh yeah, that was it. Gamergate was anti-feminism. That was it. Kickstarter. Remember how to spell her name? Probably can't. There we go. Tropes versus women in video games. Yeah, that was it. And she got an insane amount of money. Just trying to see if I can see how much it got 158 or 59,000 dollars for her to create this. I think it was like a 10-part documentary, right? And she tried to outsource the entirety of the work to other people, right? The facts that she was throwing around were false, basically saying like the most powerful female characters in the entirety of video games, like the original female protagonist was like Lara Croft and things like this. Again, I could be getting this is not fact, this is from memory, so I could be wrong, right? Do you know who like one of the most prevalent female protagonists is in video games?
The first one that pops up is like Samus, Metroid.
Freaking hell yes, Samus Aran, right? Oh yeah, she was really scantily clad, and so Anita Sarkeesian was massively slated, and all her videos were supposed to be this source of truth of this is how women are treated within video games and stuff like this, right? And it was awful, right? But I had plenty of arguments with people that claim to be feminists saying how, taking rhetoric from Anita Sarkeesian stating they were fact. It's like, this is not fact, right? This is opinion. This is someone saying they don't like something. It is an opinion.
Well, that is a really hard thing when it comes to like a lot of especially documentaries or like people that try to like explain as though they're telling the truth. And it's okay. Let me start us off by saying that whenever we're having this discussion, like I tend to not portray this as I'm stating factual claims that I know to be 100% true. We are having a discussion right here to be talking about concepts which we try to be as accurate about as how true they can be as best as memory serves us. But like on every claim that I make, I am not doing the decent enough research like right now in the moment to like refute any contradicting evidence. But like when I say that like what are some things that we talked about? Well, like we talked about like Division 2, like right. Well, like that situation happened like I said some things about like the bans that happened. Some people got banned that did not do this thing, and some people didn't get banned that did do the exploit. It's like I don't know that for 100% certain, but I've gotten it from someone who I believe to be a somewhat reliable source. Then again, I am not telling you like take whatever I say for a fact. We're just like rambling about and like trying to like play around with ideas, and like the facts of the matter that we bring up serve as a support for these ideas, but we're not telling you as it is. I'm not here to like lecture you as to this is how it happened. We're just trying to like throw around ideas and see how these ideas shape out if we have a discussion for this. However, when it comes to like these things as documentaries, but also podcasts and like anything which like may portray some form of like fact or information, people take that as fact very, very fast. And like, because like it takes a lot of time to like do the research, and then like how much easier is it to just take what's being said for truth, especially when it says documentary, where watch out, by the way, documentaries have certain requirements to be called documentaries. And I think like the requirements generally are like the terms of length, like that they have a certain like actually I can look it up in a moment, but like there are certain requirements that like a documentary has to fulfill, but not one of them is that they have to tell the truth. Like there's no requirement for you to make a documentary that says you have to be truthful about what you depict. So a documentary, as was like the case when like Shane Dawson made like the 8-part documentary series on like different YouTube celebrities, it's like, yeah, like he could have just as easily qualified that as a documentary, because like even though it was very shifted towards like one way of making you think, he didn't need to tell the truth. It's entertainment. And documentaries are inherently also somewhat entertainment. So like whenever someone makes out a Kickstarter to like make a piece of media, it doesn't necessarily, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to making a piece of media, I don't know the legal ramifications of like what was being said in the Kickstarter, and like whether there be legal ramifications to like saying, I will make a truthful thing and factual, and then like not following up with that. But if you said I'm going to make a documentary, that's entertainment, and you can twist the facts as much as you want to. Doesn't have to be true, but that doesn't mean that that's like less scummy to do, because yeah, that's very like, you're not pushing like the truth, you're pushing like an ideology, and I'm not a big fan of ideologies.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the problem with I can't remember how many years it took Anita Sarkeesian to actually produce the entirety of the documentary series.
Mm-hmm.
I do know she ran out of money very quickly.
Man.
You know, it's just like, you know, if you got to have a plan before you even start one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And she was held to actually do the entire documentary. She couldn't, she couldn't skip out on it or anything like that. So either she did that or she had to refund everyone. So she either had to do the whole thing or refund everyone, because she'd already spent all the money. There was another instance recently with the whole transsexual representation within CD Projekt Red, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was absolutely hilarious, where she started slating and accusing CD Projekt Red of transphobia and stuff, and then started shilling her own company to, you know, do the whole PR of transsexual representation within Cyberpunk 2077. And it's just like, wow, that's a quick tonal change, isn't it?
Well, like that's something which like oftentimes when you see people being like very passionate about certain subjects, and especially like trying to like call out people, I often look at it and be like, well, what is your motive? What is your motive? Because more often than not, there are like big underlying selfish motives, either for it being like, hey, get attention, look at me, everyone look at me, I'm right, go follow me and like listen to me, or like trying to like, oh, use my company, or even like, hey, This is also something that happens a lot. People calling other people out because they don't want to be called out themselves. They're like, oh, look at how woke I am. Look at how cool I am. I'm calling this person out. I am definitely not bad. Do not look at my history. You do not need to look at my tweets because I'm calling these people out. Do you see how good I am? And it's like, dude, like, honestly, most of the time, like, actually, 100% of the time, when I see like these call outs on Twitter or anywhere, I just like, I'm like, whoop. I scroll past. I am not interested in any of that because 9 out of 10 times it's such bullshit. It's so stupid. It's such a. Come on, calm down, people. You have lives outside the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. What did I just? I don't know. It's we've gotten into an age where it's seemed commonplace that it seemed to be all right to accuse people of things and not take people's thoughts and feelings into consideration. Like this whole, it's.
I believe that there are two factors which play a huge part in this. Number one, well, both factors have to do with like the internet because I think that that's like one of the main instigators for this situation. But like the first factor is that like the internet allows so many more people and so many more like brains to be connected to like a single event than used to be before. Like if something happened at any place on the earth before the days of the internet, like either like I would be the only one to experience it, or like you would be there with me, or maybe there'd be like 10 people in a room. Like not that many people can be held in a room, but even if it was like at a town square, like it would be limited to hundreds, maybe thousands. But when you get to like thousands, like individual voices are just drowned out, and like the people that are like at the front end of the stadium and the people that are on the back end of the stadium are not having the same conversation. Well, maybe by chance because of like the monkey that types at like a whole muffle, like the random typing monkey theory. Like maybe there's a chance that both of them are having the same conversation. Most likely not. So like you'd never really have like large crowds of people, large amounts of like individual brains like talking about like the same conversation, like the same event that was happening. Now though, because of like things like Twitter, because of things like YouTube or whatever, like thousands to millions of people can be looking at like one thing and comment on that, and then everyone can comment on that, and then everyone can comment on that. And what you're left with is that like not only is everyone seeing it, but everyone is also like analyzing it by themselves, and then they're also like analyzing the responses, and they're analyzing the responses. So like the entire like process of like what is this thing and what does it stand for and what does it mean and what's wrong with it and what's like that is so rapidly like developed that like it makes no sense at some point. It just goes so fast. And at the same time, point two is that the personal element is completely lost. Like I'm beginning to believe this stronger and stronger, that the personal element that I believe to be very well present in like the online connection is so much more less than I thought it would be. So like to elaborate a little bit, I remember when I started like doing like gaming stuff and like Discord came around and like I would talk to people, and then like if you were talking to like older generations, you're like, oh yeah, I know these people, like they're my online friends. They'd be like, online friends? Yeah, they're not real friends. And it's like, no, dude, it's real. Like I really know them. Like I play games with them. Like I talk to them. I chat with them. Chatting with this person makes them that's equal to like me knowing them from my childhood. Like that kind of situation. And for a large part, like there is a truth to it. I've met some really great people through this. Like you, like Hydroxate, like many people that have also later on come to meet in real life. However, one thing is that like if you don't meet each other in real life, if you don't meet each other on a regular basis, it becomes really hard to understand like what's going on with the person themselves, and let alone when they just post a tweet. Like for example, I used to have like I used to be in contact with someone that was a big fan of like Warframe. I'm not gonna name them, but like I used to be in contact with them quite a bit. And then I posted up a tweet being a little bit critical of Warframe, and they got so mad about that I posted a tweet which is a little bit critical of Warframe. They cut all contact with me, and a few years later I reached out to them for something completely unrelated. And I was talking with them, and they were like, "Yeah, dude, I'm so glad to speak with you again, because like, I don't like this game anymore. It's so horrible." And I was like, "What's going on here? What happened?" Well, like what I feel happens is that people, like, whenever they're like looking at a tweet, or whenever they're looking at like a person as like a text form chat, or maybe even voice chat, because that doesn't really completely convey like being there in person. Like, they portray a certain image of that person in their head of what that person is supposed to be, based on the tweet, based on the limited amount of information they have. And most likely, that information is not true. That information is not who that person is. However, they make that image of that person. They're like, oh, this person was just completely critical of Warframe. This person hates Warframe. This person is a bad person, and then decide to go on that, and then that's who you become to them. And like, that's also what I see happening with these tweets. Where like, they can't look at the person because they've already made up their mind about who you are based on one single line of text. And it's like,
Well,
come on, man.
I think that's not just limited to to online. I think that is just a way culture is going now. So, for example, we spend a lot of time hooked into the internet, so on and so forth. Even people that don't necessarily sit in front of a computer, they're always online. One thing that pisses me off is whenever I meet up with people to go to the cinema and things, we've gone out for food, and I do my damnedest, right? I get my phone, put it on the table, right? And I will not touch it unless I absolutely need to, right? If I get a message, I'll have a glance. Nope, it can wait. Job done, right? Otherwise, it's on the table, you know, cards dealt, so on and so forth. You know, that is the situation. But I feel that people have a faster way to react to things in real life as much as they do on the internet, right? So you were saying earlier that with the internet, friendships span greater distances, right? But if you looked at it way back when, right? Like when my father was working and things like that, he wasn't his friends like spanned cities, right? Or other sides of the country, right? Other side of the country. He wouldn't be able to keep in contact. So he would develop friendships with the people he's working with, right? Which to me is completely different. Yes, I joke and I'm jovial about some of the stuff with my colleagues, but my true friends are the ones that I have this great distance with, right? Loz is one of my best friends. He's a city over, right? I see him typically once a week, right? To give him 10 o'clock on a USB stick. Otherwise, it's whenever we go to the cinema, right? My friend Yi, who is maybe 2 cities over, right? I talk to on a daily basis, mostly via my phone, right? One of my other friends, Cthulhu, right? She's down in London. I certainly can't see her often, but again, I talk to her as frequently as I can, right? If people reach out to me, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with them to my detriment of I should be doing something else. But, but the thing is, I have more in common with these people than I do with the people at work, right? I'm currently working from home on a daily basis. And one of the funniest things is I took a photo. I'll send it, like, as long as people don't mind a messy desk scenario. Where is it? There we go. I will show you a photo. It's okay. It's not that messy, but it's messy enough. I'll show you a photo of what my desk looks like. Get this. Open original. Ha 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 ha. So, you know, that's not you. That's not you. That's you. This is my desk setup. Right?
Oh,
you know,
it requires me to sign in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a sign
Um,
in.
no. I'll just upload it to you real
Yeah,
quick.
cool.
Hopefully. Oh no, I can share it to you on Dropbox because I have it on Dropbox. Because all my camera uploads go to Dropbox. Come on, faster, faster. Like it, I don't know why my PC always insists on indexing this folder. Yes, it has a lot of photos in it. Yep. Then you. So, copy Dropbox link. No Dropbox. No what? Why? What? Dropbox. Why you got to be like that? There. No. Wait. Yeah. Drop.
That's how you know it's live and it's not pre-recorded. We are raw right here, giving you the raw experience.
Clearly.
And
Can you see? You should be able to see that.
yeah, I think that I got it right here. Boom.
Right.
Yep.
So you can see my desk, a little bit messy, but it's got my work Mac and it's got a bunch of monitors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I showed this to some of my work colleagues. It's like, oh my God, why do you need so many monitors?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. How can you deal with just having one? Like, that makes me want to cry.
Yeah, you get used to it. In some sense, I've lost my second monitor because of COVID, because like someone needs to work here and like they need a monitor. So
Right.
like I'm down one monitor. Normally I would do this with two monitors. Now I stream it with one monitor and I have a laptop here, which like you can see the screen from time to time. You get used to
Yeah.
it, but yeah, like when you get used to more monitors, it's like, oh boy, I don't want to go back.
Yeah. But like, so people have different ways of looking at life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
No,
So,
I agree. Like I think that what you said about like having the free like your work friends versus like your real friends like being over distance, like it doesn't mean that if you have friends over distance that friendship doesn't work. And if you have friends close by, that those are really your great friends. It's just like maybe they're just people that you have to like put up with every day, and it might be nice if you can kind of get along, because otherwise you'd be angry with each other all the time. That wouldn't make life better for anyone.
yeah.
That being said, I do believe that like text conversations or even like voice conversations or webcam conversations, like there are higher in terms of quality, but they do not live up to real in-person interactions. And I think that when you have real in-person interactions, what's great about them is because you can really have that sensation of like, who is this other person, like what are they, like what do they think, like if they say something and like I can look at their eyes, I can look at their posture, I can see what they mean. Even if I don't know what I mean, I can come back and be like, hey, what did you really mean that? Whereas the lower you go down the rank with that, when you come to text, it's like it's so open to interpretation. And what I found is, especially when it comes to online friendships that start out without having either side ever met each other, it turns out to like you portray an image of what you think that person is to be, and that often ends up to not be the case. And that's what you see in like in the case of these tweets, or that's what you see in case of like these people that will be really upset when you're not that what they thought you'd be. And it's like, well, like, yeah, I'm sorry that I don't live up to like the expectation that you had of me from like a text conversation, but it's like that is not me. And yes, this also occurs in real life. That being said, I have not experienced this from my personal experience, because like I haven't had that many encounters with people that I've also seen online. But from like the few encounters that I did have, and from like like experiences that I've heard from like people that have had many encounters with people both online and like in real life, is that like if you encounter people in real life, they're much more likely, if you're face to face with them without people around them, but like without them like trying to rally support, like having a camera around to like show something off, if you're face to face with them, they'll tend to be way more nice most of the times than like be really angry with you. Like the people that would be like really angry with me on like on Discord, on Twitter, like shout things at me, all that sort of stuff, then like if I meet them in person, they'll just be like, hey, what's up, how you doing? Because like it's different trying to like attacking someone's image like from a keyboard towards like a screen than it is to say it in person, face to face, because like you do realize that like that right there, it's another person like me.
So, taking us back to the whole review thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to identify what is more important to you, right? So, for example, some of my friends, they are more willing to listen to the words of a complete stranger
Mm-hmm.
than of their best friend, right? And likewise, like, for me, I couldn't give a toss what a complete stranger thinks.
Mm-hmm.
The words of my friend has more importance. Like, one of my best friends, he thinks that The Last Jedi was a good movie. I clearly think he has been drinking too much, I don't know, insanity juice,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a bad movie, but he's entitled to his opinion. I'd rather listen to his opinion than that of a random person on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I was to take anything away from this podcast, if I was a listener, is investigate more than one source of information about something I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I've recently bought up parts to upgrade my PC. I have bought an MSI motherboard, and plenty of people I know flat out 100% hate MSI.
Mm-hmm.
My current motherboard is MSI. I've had it for 9 years, right? My motherboard before that was was Gigabyte. It broke in less than a year, right? My PC before that, the motherboard was MSI. The motherboard outlived my use of the PC. The motherboard before that, that was MSI. That the motherboard in the PC before that, that was MSI. It outlived the use of the PC,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, brand loyalty is a thing, but certainly investigate more than one review,
Yeah.
right? Listen to multiple people. Don't just listen to one person.
Yeah,
Right.
I would definitely not say that like I'm not sponsored by MSI or anything, and I would definitely not endorse them. But hey, this laptop is still pretty good, and hey, I like MSI too. That being said, yeah, like one thing like what I think is interesting about like the review thing, as we've talked about it, they're subjective, which means that they're not objective and like they can't be fact checked, and I think that that's a good thing. Because like if you only go by objective things, then like you'd only go by the facts, and like the facts don't really tell anything. They don't really tell anything about like what it is, like what you feel about it, how good it is, because something being good or being bad is an opinion in and of itself. That is an opinion. And if the only facts that could be provided were to come from like the publisher or creator, then like they could be very heavily biased. So reviews keep honest, but a review in and of itself doesn't keep honest, because like a subjective opinion is like anyone can give whatever opinion they want. They're open to it, and because of that, like individual reviews might be very very like bad or biased, and they might like you might not even say that, hey, a review which has got like a 0 score on like this game because this person got banned, is that entirely accurate as a review? Not really, but like I don't think reviews are necessarily meant to be factual or accurate, because like they're subjective. They're not objective. So the fact that this person went out of its way to like give that thing a 0 means that there was something to that person that motivated them to do it. And if that's the true, if that's the true way you should feel about it, I don't think so, because there might also be a person that gave it a 10 because they absolutely loved it. However, the fact that these two people can exist, and like the gradation in which they exist and the gradation in which they come forward, I do think does say something more and does add value to like your investigation or your search for information about like the quality of like a product rather than that be not there. Because if that was not there, then you wouldn't have any indication. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of like the whole of it keeps honest, whereas like the single thing
Yeah.
isn't factual because it's not factual. It's subjective. It's not true.
No, I get where you're coming from. I think that it's really important to identify the best method of approach. And, like some person might turn around and say like, oh, this thing is amazing. It's the best thing ever. Like, you don't have to listen to the same person every single time. I used to listen to one person give reviews, and then all of a sudden the tone changed, and like all the absolutely amazing games seemed utter garbage, and I could no longer trust their review. And yeah, so investigate multiple people, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that the people that you listen to have strong reviews. Actually, one thing I will say is, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please let us know who you get your reviews from and about what. Right.
Yeah.
So video game things, I will typically go to Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, just to see the gameplay experience, and then I'll judge for myself. PC hardware, now I've got my own opinions because I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. I've been doing it for like over 20 years, so Logitech, MSI, Corsair, Antec, Casa, I have those opinions. So let us know who you feel is a good source.
Yeah. No, one thing that I had that I wanted to say, so on the thing of like official reviewers or like critics, like I don't know, the professional, that's the word I was looking for, the professional critics, the professional reviewers. I was kind of wondering halfway through this podcast, like what is the value of like having a professional reviewer, in the sense of like, if we are to take like all the reviews to like make our estimation of like what is true, then like how much more value does like a professional reviewer have versus like someone that just gives their opinion. But I think that it's because I think the value is within, because they have experienced more of the thing that they're reviewing. So like, let's say that like this is my very first motherboard that I'm reviewing. Then like, I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know all the fine details and the balances. Like, this could be like the best motherboard I've ever encountered. Like I recently said that like Picard is like the best Star Trek series I've ever watched, but it's also the worst Star Trek series I ever watched because it's the only one I ever watched. So like, you shouldn't go by my by my like review of it. So like, I think that is something which, like, number one, that's a really good thing, and number two, like, this is kind of muted by the fact that they can, like, some reviewers can be bought, but like if your profession is to be a reviewer, most likely you're not gonna say review like, this sucks, it's bad, it kicked me out of the game, bleh. Like, you'll probably like have something more to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I think that we've kind of like rounded up this topic. So if you guys have any questions in chat about this topic, about anything else, about anything in the Wild universe, feel free to post it in the chat, and then we can respond to it if we feel like it.
Cool. So Cephalon Tribal says, do you think it's best to get a general sense of something, be watching a regular video on it instead of a review of it?
I think that both have value in it, in the sense of like, would I can understand the way that you pose it. So like, if I want to like get a game or get something, like, does it work? Like, is there more value in me just like watching like the raw experience of that entire game, or me looking at reviews? And I think that like one could argue that like the raw experience of, like, let's say an unboxing of a product is maybe a lot more valuable because you can see the entire thing instead of someone trying to like point you towards it with their opinion in mind. However, I do think that having like seen different reviews, provides you with an entry point in what way to look at something. So like most of the time, if I'm looking for reviews to something or looking for like information about something, it's because I'm not very knowledgeable about the thing that I'm looking at. So if I were to just like see a raw unboxing of something, or if I were to see just gameplay without any commentary about it or anything else, I'd just be looking at it and be like, right, well, sure, that looks like something, but you don't know what to look at. And like when you start looking at reviews and like you take a couple of them and then you nuance them, like you see what kind of points they make, then you can take a look at the raw thing, like the gameplay footage or like the product unboxing, and then you can like use the things that you've heard about from the reviews to like take a look at that and be like, hey, does what they say make sense? Is that right? Do I see that as well, or do I not see that? And if I see that, like, is it as important to me seeing this as the reviewer said it was? I think that there is value from like having the combination of both, where like the reviews give you like an entry point. Is like, what things should you look for?
I also feel that this is also good mentality for tutorials. So when I'm doing anything, what's called video editing related, I'm trying to work something out. So one of my colleagues, he left the company at the beginning of the month, or end of last. And we couldn't say goodbye to them properly. We couldn't do a card. We couldn't talk in person. Regardless of the whole social distancing thing, is also the fact that they work out in Singapore. So we were asked, could someone put together a video to say goodbye and everything? And I did so. I offered my services to put together a video to say goodbye. And my skills as a video editor isn't as high as, say, like Joey or Michelle's, cheeky little bugger, right? And I want to learn. So I wanted to see if there was a way to improve the stability of camera footage within Sony Vegas, specific Pro 17. And I did a YouTube search on it, and they were like, there's loads and loads of videos, and they're just like mumbling, and they're all over the place. I'm like, what the hell are you on, right? And I found one video, one absolute gem of a video that actually made me subscribe to this person. And he properly explained how it works, how to improve it, how to deal with this, that, and the other. And I was bowled over, right? Tutorial videos, to me, are, a good tutorial video is rarer than that of a good review, right? So in that regard, you should just check everything out. Just like, until you feel satisfied that you have a good understanding of what it is you're trying to research, just keep going. Just keep looking at it.
Yeah. Like I'm like, feel free to like share the link with me later on, because like I find it really cool to find channels that do good tutorials. Like the hard part when it comes to like tutorials on YouTube is that like the same thing when it comes to news, the same thing when it comes to like the documentary thing that we were talking about, like the truth thing that we were talking about, is that like you're not necessarily like, when you're making a tutorial, you're not making a tutorial, like you're not selling a tutorial. What you're selling, or like what you're creating, is a place where people look at, where advertisers can advertise so that you earn money. Like that's what you're creating. That's what anyone that creates, that's even what we're creating. Like we're creating a place where people come and look at, and because people come and look at this, like it might be interesting for advertisers to advertise on this so that we can earn money. That's the way that all these creators earn money. So like what you'll find is that like a lot of tutorials are not necessarily 100% good tutorials, because they're going to be like, hey, look at my sponsorship. Hey, I got to sell my personality. Hey, I got to make this maybe more interesting for people that might not have this problem. Let's just like bumble about and let's get around the point. So like it's kind of hard to find a good tutorial. But like if you do find one that is really good, like I do believe at the end of the day that even though the industry, or like the way that this is set up, it means that like the focus is on like creating the space where like you get money from like advertisers, or you get money from like whoever invests in it. I do believe that like the core quality of what you create is more important. And I differ in that. Like there are also creators that do not agree with that. They're like, yes, I can spend a lot more time in this video and like make it look good, but like I don't need to do that because like that's not important. It's just important that people watch for this amount of time. And like yeah, that's their hustle. But I do believe that with sites like Patreon, with ways like subscribing on Twitch or like joining the membership program on YouTube or those kinds of things, like having a subscription model could actually like help like bring back this term of quality where it's like you don't have to like worry about like making the financials meet or like having to look at like all these advertiser sides of things because like you're supported by the audience that enjoys the quality of the content that's being put out. So yeah, I'm actually like happy to hear that you subscribe to the guy because his tutorial is so great, and I'm like very curious to see like what the tutorial is because like I like it. I really like it when people create something that's good, that's just good, uncompromised. I love it.
Trying to find this person's channel again.
All right, let me see. Blue Demon says, normally I watch gameplay video. If I don't get a good opinion, I see a review, see the reviewer, but mostly on their net pick. Yeah. I often go by like different reviewers. I'll most of the time I'll make use of YouTube because like videos do tend to be my thing, would you believe it or not. Yeah, like I will, especially when it comes to like phones or like I'm looking at like cameras or hardware, especially like hardware. Like I know a lot about like I love tech, but like I am not that experienced in handling tech a lot like myself. So like I am trying to like use different reviews for that, and then like use different reviews from different people to like see if I can like find a decent way around with it. Anyway, I think that if there are no further questions, we have come to an end of this Framecast. Well, if you find a link later, you can DM it to me, and I'll see if I can throw it in the description of like the video or the VOD.
Oh, wait, no, I think I just found it.
Oh, you did? Sweet.
Yep, found it.
All right, we're still getting a conclusion to this. I love it when we round up all those threads at the end of the story arc of this podcast. So let us take a look to this channel right here. Boom. Oh shit, it's frozen over. All right, here we go. Reconnecting. Here we go. Scrapyard Films.
Yeah, so they've done like a bunch of breakdowns on videos, and it's like just really good things to know.
Cool. I'm gonna check them out.
Yep.
They don't seem to be that big of a channel. They got 12,000 subscribers. If you're interested in anything relating to Sony Vegas or so, check them out. Yeah. I know. Shout out to Scrapyard Films. I'm gonna check them out because I love like seeing creators, new creators, finding out about them. So yeah. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining in. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed it, Drew.
Yep.
And yeah, we'll see you all next time. Next week, same time, same bad channel. Same bad channel, as I should say properly. That's how bad it is. And make sure you check this out on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out yet, like if you missed it, the video will be live tomorrow on YouTube. YouTube.com/PostmaLoneGames. If you want to check out Xeno right here, check out YouTube.com/XenoGellion. And check out his Patreon as well if you want to support him. Patreon.com/XenoGellion. Yeah, we will see you all next week again for Framecast 39. 11 more episodes after that. Actually, 12 right now until episode 50. But we're going to have to think of something cool to do. If you guys have any suggestions, leave them down for like what should we do for episode 50 because I have no idea yet. It's 12 weeks away, but like 12 weeks go fast.